Okay, all right. So, yeah, thanks everyone. We did one of these last week for people that have been in industry for a little while, but today we're addressing students. And I'm really pleased to see that there are a number of our global student interns that are joining, as well as our local Malaysians joining from Women in Rail and perhaps even potential YTL employees. Okay, so can I have the first slide, please? I'm talking today about, really, if you guys are going to go out into the job market, how are we going to make an impression really quickly? And the key thing to understand is that you've got, with your resume, you've got about 10 to 15 seconds to get it into the pile. So there's usually 3 piles. There's the yes, no, and maybes. And those piles are to determine whether or not you might get an interview for the dream job, perhaps. And when people are receiving, in some cases, like we did an interview, we did a process a few years ago for the University of Melbourne, and we had something like 800 resumes came in for one job, which was just ridiculous, and considering most of them were just people that obviously weren't even interested, you're just throwing away the resumes, to try and skim through and find out exactly who you want to actually talk to is really key. So this is whether it's a small company like mine that probably doesn't have, huge loads of them, but also, larger companies that are used to dealing with, huge volumes, or talent acquisition companies. So how do you make an impression in that first 10 to 15 seconds when people are skimming through going, oh God, when there are so many? What's really key these days is that you put a little summary statement at the front, just up under your name and things like that, sort of position you as a key person for this job, why you think you're the key person. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't need to be a lot, and it doesn't have to be, you don't want to go into too much detail, but you want a couple of sentences that sort of say, why do you need to be considered for the job? That's the first part. Then the whole layout of your resume needs to ensure that it's sort of skimmable. We don't want paragraphs, we don't want whole sentences, dot points and things like that. I want to see the key things that I can see at a glance. Is this person, got the right degree, or, right experience? Or I'll talk a little bit later about what I look for, which is actually not really so much about what degree you have. Keywords. So keywords are really key. Of course, obviously that's why they're called keywords. And where you get your keywords from is from the job description, from the advertisement. So if the company is asking for certain things, like somebody that's got leadership skills or has managed a team or something like that, you want to look for those words and you want to make sure that those words are showing up somewhere in your resume. Now, it's also really cool to know that you know a little bit about what the keywords are for the industry. And nobody expects, fresh grads to perhaps know all the stuff, but you probably would have picked up quite a few of them from your studies. But you can also go to Google and find out, what are the key words for your industry? What are the key terms? What are the things that might impress a little bit? You don't want to fill your resume with jargon, but you want people to understand that you know a little bit about the industry you're trying to get into and how you can, why you want to get into that industry, I guess. So keywords sort of jump out a little bit, but don't get into too much jargon. And also be really wary of, making motherhood statements in your little summary at the top that says, I'm a team player, self-driven, words that sort of start to become a little bit generic, I guess. And when you do use words like that, like team player, then you need to show in the resume, why you consider yourself a team player. Have you been, working in teams, in a volunteer position or in a part-time job or something like that? So you need to be able to show that stuff. Don't just put them in there and expect that, everybody's going to understand what it is. You need to be able to back it up with evidence, I guess. When we're looking at a skimmable undergrad graduate resume, you don't have a lot of stuff to put in there yet. So, of course, the first thing is your education. What degree you're doing, where you're doing it. And when you can, don't just list university and course and school and, you haven't got a lot to put in at this stage. What you need to be putting in is perhaps about your university. What have you done at university? You've enjoyed, you've done this course, you've been doing, say, a Bachelor of Commerce. What parts of the course have been of particular interest, or where you got really good grades because you're interested, or you did a group project that was a real life project with other team, students that provided something to a company. So it's very hard to tell from a degree, from a standard degree on a resume, what you've actually got out of it. Okay, we all know what, we sort of got a rough idea what you're going to be learning, but what else did you get from that experience of being at that university and studying that degree? I guess some of you, you're probably, because you're so young, you can still put in your school. That's gives, especially if it's a nice school, it's a good school, people will be interested in what school you went to. And that's not just about the level of education. It's about perhaps the networks that you might have and you might cultivate from going to a school like that. So sometimes you put those in, but, it's not, you've got to be able to, say something about school, I guess, not just list your school. Were you a prefect? Were you head of some kind of club, a president of a club or something like that? All those sorts of things show that you have interests beyond study. Most employers are looking for people that are a bit more well-rounded. I don't really want somebody that, has got all A's in their SPM or STPM necessarily if they can't string a sentence together, okay? If they've never worked in groups, if they're poor communicators, what use are they to me? Do you know what I mean? So we're very, you need to be able to, these are markers in time for you, but what did they provide you? What did they give you? It's the same with our Australian students. I always tell the example, I remember they have used to in Australia, if you studied medicine, or if you've studied year 12, to go into medicine, you needed, they only took the people with the top, 95 or above people got into medicine. But the interview, when they brought in the interview process, it knocked out a lot of those people that were in the high 90s because they were really poor communicators. And what they had done to get that score was study and do nothing else but study. And most companies these days are looking for people that don't necessarily have high grades, but can think, can get along well with other people, can communicate well. And this is what you're going to try. You're going to try and convey all this in about 15 seconds while I'm skimming through your resume. Because if the front page is not going to do it, I'm not going to the second page, right? So if you've got any part-time work, whatever you might have been working in Burger King or in retail or in your dad's company, doing their accounts or something like that. Put that in. That's really important because it shows that you're actually a little bit independent. You are able to get yourself, balance work and school, and that you're able to, you're learning skills when you're out working that you don't learn at school, which is, interpersonal communication skills and things like that. So, for instance, if you just list Starbucks or Burger King or the Body Shop or whatever it might be, it doesn't really, what we're trying to look at from those is, we can see that you did those things, and we know how you know how to pressure scan a, use a cash register, a point of sale machine or something like that, or you might know how to make coffee. What did you learn from those jobs? What are the things that you get from your part-time work? You're having adult relationships with other people. You're learning to improve your customer service skills in serving coffee, and especially if you're in a coffee shop, you're making lots of conversation with people. How do you put that in a sentence that says, worked at Starbucks, went from waitressing to becoming a barista? That shows to me that if that you've moved on, that you weren't, you've actually taken an opportunity to learn something new. If you're working in retail, what's the thing you like about working in retail? The favourite thing about my job is that I love being able to assist customers to choose the right gift or the right item of clothing or whatever. So, things that show a little bit about your personality without, going into too much detail, because I don't want to know your whole experience of working in the body shop or which products you like or anything like that. What we want to know is what are the things that you think you're learning? And it might be it's about balancing, rushing from work to get into your job and then back home again or off to football training or something like that. Somebody that's balancing stuff is somebody that can multitask. And they're the sorts of people that I'm looking for when I'm looking for people to work for me. And I have to be honest, like I often I'm not even really worried about the degree. The degree for me is a vehicle. If you've been to university, it shows me something about you where you've spent the last 3 years. But what I really want to know is, can you learn, and can you learn independently? And what are you bringing to the company besides a piece of paper that says I've done this? Okay, so this is all stuff that you're going to try and get in there really quickly. So keywords, key statements without going into writing your life story, because we don't want a whole biography. Okay, make sure that if you are a member of teams is always good. If you play cricket or football or basketball or badminton, if you volunteer at your local dog shelter or orphanage or whatever it is, put it in there. That sort of stuff is really important because, again, it's about balance, but it also shows that you're independent, and then you've got a sense of social justice, that you're actually out there in the community and you're engaging. All that sort of stuff is important. And when I see somebody that's got a few interests outside of school and they've got a part-time job and they're getting reasonable grades, I think, well, that's the sort of person that I think I want to employ, because they're somebody that's actually already managing their lives. They're not just going home from school each day and they're, just laying down and on the bed and going to sleep until dinner is served and then watching Netflix or doing some study or something. I want somebody that is actually out there communicating with people and building some interpersonal skills and making connections, because I know then that when I employ somebody like that they're not going to be frightened of me or of the rest of my team, or of networking and engaging with my clients or with my future students or whatever it is. I need people that communicate. Communication is key. And if I had $1 for every time a company told me that the biggest problem they have with fresh grads is that they have really poor communication skills, it's not something that's taught at university. It's something that you actually have to learn and cultivate and develop yourselves. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the next part of being presenting in 15 seconds, of course, as well, is that have a resume that looks interesting. We get resumes all the time for our interns coming from Australia, and sometimes I just throw them back, and say, oh, this is a terrible resume. I am embarrassed to put this up to a company, that for somebody that we're wanting to find an internship for. And we will say to a university, this person's, resume is terrible. Can you get them to fix it up? And a lot of people actually work with students now before they put them in. But, really, it's not rocket science, people. If you've got a degree, you're working your way through a degree, you should be able to Google a template for a resume. And there are thousands upon thousands out there. So find one that reflects your personality. Don't go too crazy. If it's too busy and it's too, or too compartmentalized, or it's, too fancy or whatever, that's going to hurt my eyes as well, and it's probably going to go into the no pile. If I've got to search for the information, not interested. Okay, it's got to be nice and clear. But you want something that's professional and clear and allows me to skim down and go, oh, this is what they've done. That's great. If you're a student that's in design or visual arts or something like that, that's looking for a job in that industry, then you might want something that sort of reflects that industry. But if you're not, if you're a business student or a lawyer or something like that, you probably just want to keep it nice and clear and professional. And there's so many templates, and it tells you, so it prompts you for all the information that you want. It means that you don't have to think, what do I put in? They're actually asking you, they're prompting you, helping you put in what you need to put in. Use dot points. Don't write paragraphs. Just dot points, dot points, dot points. Short phrases. No need to have complete sentences. It's about, being able for me to skim my eye down and get what the information that I want. Only relevant information, all the stuff we talked about in the first slide. No need to, I don't need to know about your family history or how many different schools you went to or whatever. We just want to know what are the key things that I think this person is interesting. I think I want to have a chat with them. Make sure that everything is clear and correct, okay? Don't embellish the truth because you will be found out, okay? It's very easy to check on people these days about to check whether people are telling the truth or not, and only have to sort of, do a LinkedIn search or a Google search and, contact somebody. We've got very wide connections. So if somebody's told me they've come from this university, I have connections at most universities. I can certainly tell if something doesn't look right, and I can ask somebody. So, make sure that you're putting in the right information, that it's clear, and that also your contact details are very clear. I often say, especially for people that perhaps not just fresh grads, but people that have been looking out for work for a while, remember that a talent organisation, talent recruitment company that might be trying to hire you, it may be outsourced, okay? So it may not be in the country in which you are applying for the job, okay? So if you're in Malaysia, it might be somewhere in the Philippines, could be doing the talent search. If you're in Australia, it could be somebody from, Indonesia or somewhere else, Malaysia, doing a talent search, because stuff like this is outsourced. So if you're putting in contact information, make sure that you use, and it's a good practice to get into, using international codes. So if you're putting in a mobile phone number, put in the +6 on the front. For Australia, it's +61. You take the 0 off the front of your mobile phone and you put +61. For Malaysia, it's +60. If you're putting, need to put in, area codes, put them in. Because if somebody's trying to contact you and the information is not there, it's not clear, and they've got to look for it, again, it'll be thrown on it'll be discarded, okay? Very important that, that you don't have typos and incorrect grammar. Yes, in Malaysia, yes, you're applying in English quite often. Nobody expects that you're going to be 100% perfect, but try and get it as close as you can. And what I say quite often, and this I used to say to my daughter all the time, even when she was writing, essays in English, read it out loud. If you read it out loud, you can often hear where errors are. And if you get somebody else to read it, find somebody that's got better English than yourself, get them to read it and make sure that it's looking okay before it comes, because that's the other part. If there are too many errors, that means that, well, to me, you're either, you're not equipped to deal with the level that we require in English, or you don't have good attention to detail. Okay, so that means that you're a little bit, slack, I guess, in terms of getting your stuff out there. So put it, just pay a little bit of attention, get somebody that to read it. And most people will be quite happy to look at somebody's resume. Get one of your lecturers or a friend's parent, somebody that's got good English. References is an interesting one. With people that are looking for, they're going for the second or third job, they often will put references on request, okay? So when you're a fresh grad, you don't really have a lot of, there's not a lot to draw on, is there? So usually you might have your part-time job, the boss from your part-time job, you might put them in. You might have a lecturer from a particular subject that might be, keen to be a referee for you. Sometimes people put their, a school teacher, from their school. Unless you were a prefect or a leader or the school captain or something, I don't think I would put somebody from the school. I don't think that's, school's gone, okay? You're more likely to have somebody that's able, you've changed a lot since you've left school, right? You've had 3 years, 2 years out of school. You're a different person usually. You've grown a lot. You've had a lot of different experiences. Use somebody that is more, has seen how you work rather than somebody that knew you when you're at school, because that person doesn't really matter so much anymore, okay? So references, we would normally say for older people that they don't probably really use references so much because if you get an interview, you'll be asked to provide them then. But I guess when you're a fresh grad, you probably want to show that you've got people that can sort of attest to you and your skills and that sort of stuff, because you haven't been in the, you might not have been in the workforce for very long, and you're trying to, get somebody to vouch for the fact that you've actually been, doing some interesting stuff. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, a few do's and don'ts. Please don't use, an email that reflects what you do on the weekend. Okay, so things like, I've put a couple of examples there, like Dancing Queen or Keg Master, or things that you don't put into a Gmail. If you don't have a professional one, just use your name. Make a new Gmail with your name or something like that. Dancing Queen might have been cute, when you were 16 to 17, but when you're going for jobs, it's not really cute. Okay, use a professional email. Now, this next one is really interesting because I know we've got Australians on the call. We don't include photos in Australia. In fact, we don't use any personal information in Australia. And that's because there are labour laws that state that you must be hired on your merit and not on what you look like, what race you are, what religion you are, whether you're married, single, all those sorts of things. So in Australia, a resume is very straightforward. It doesn't include any of those things. We talked about this at the last session I did for older people last week. And in Malaysia, it's common practice to put a photo in with your resume. Although in some companies it's becoming less of a practice, I guess, these days, but it still happens. And some companies, insist they want to see a photo. And of course, you often get resumes that have person's race, their religion, how old they are, whether they're married. All of that, it does not exist in Australia. So in Australia, we don't put any of that in because a company cannot choose you, based on any of the information that you've put in there. Okay. In Malaysia, that's sort of still common practice, but it means that and I know I've met people here since I've lived in Malaysia that have employed people based on, or given them an interview based on their photo. And of course, race is a big thing here, that people will choose, some people will choose people based on their race or their religion, or won't employ somebody because they're married. So, a young woman might not be employed because the company says, oh, she's married, she's young, that means she's going to go and have babies, so I don't want to employ her, she's wasting my time. Whereas, that can't be taken into consideration in Australia. It may exist in certain places, but there are labour laws to protect you from that sort of thing. So two ways of doing things. When I first came here and worked for the University of Melbourne, and as I said, I think I had about 800 applications came in for the first job, which was just appalling. They came in from all over Asia. It was quite remarkable. But I nearly died when I had all these photos and information. I'm going, oh my goodness, why are people telling me all this stuff? But then I realised that was common practice here. You add a cover letter, and the cover letter is not a 3-page essay. A cover letter is a couple of paragraphs that say, here's my resume. This is a summary of what's in my resume, and this is why I think you should interview me. So it gets an opportunity for you to put a couple of dot points, make a couple of points about your experience and why you deserve an interview, what you think you'll bring to the company, why you think they should consider you. And the very, very important thing is don't have one resume and just send it off to 20 jobs, okay? Customise each resume for the job. Go back and adapt and play with your resume so that the keywords that I talked about on the first slide, the keywords reflect the job that you're applying for, and that you've thought about it. Show that you have tailored this to the job. If I get a resume that says, dear HR manager, when I've said apply to, send your resume to Jan Drew, that shows me that you haven't even, you've paid no attention and you just, you've just got, 30 resumes sitting on your desk and you're just sending them out wholesale to anybody. And that's not what I want. I want somebody that's actually looked at what the job requires and has said to me, this is what the job, I understand what the job requires and this is why I'm your man or woman. Okay, so don't just send a blanket resume out, a blanket cover letter out. They just get discarded, okay? Now, just think about this, that sometimes students say to me, oh, but, I don't, I feel like I'm showing off if I put this in or I put that in. That's okay. A resume is a marketing tool. It's something that shows, you're trying to show why you are the person. It's the same as if, when we do marketing to say why we're the company that, students should apply to do an internship with, the same thing. When you are looking for a job, you're marketing yourself. So it's not showing off. It's actually showing your strengths. And there's this, that's different, okay? So, put in things that you think might be interesting. If you work with disabled children on weekends, if you, I don't know, if you're an entrepreneur and you've tried to start, your own business 2 or 3 times and failed each time, that's okay. Put it in because, that's all experience. That's what people are looking for. People that are out there having a go, not somebody that just thinks that grades are important, because grades are not the be all and end all. Okay. Now, this next slide is something that I want you to have a think about as well. I don't know if I can't really see you all, but, I don't think we can do it on Google Meets. But what I'd like to know is how many, perhaps you can put in the chat. Is there a chat? I don't even see whether there is a chat on this. Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah. Are you, who's got a LinkedIn account out of all the people here? Do many of you have LinkedIn? Yes, good. Oh, there we go. So a few that are saying yes. Well done. Okay, well done. Because, LinkedIn is a really important tool, okay? And it's a very important tool for graduates as well. So when we're talking to our interns, we often do a session and I send out some information when the students finish their internships about their LinkedIn account and how you should have one. And why? Because LinkedIn it's like an online resume these days, okay? So when LinkedIn first started, it was like people used it to recruit people, but now it's even more than that. People still use it to recruit people, but it's more, it's a professional networking tool now as well, So it's a really useful tool for you to showcase what you're doing and where your interests are, okay? So when you're at uni or you're a fresh grad, you don't have a lot, right? You might not have a lot of experience and you might not have exactly what everybody's looking for, but you can use LinkedIn to showcase your interest, to join in conversations, to show that you're interested in the industry that you want to work in. And when people are looking, if you've been involved in conversations on LinkedIn, your the algorithms will show that you will show up a lot more quickly in a search. So how do you do LinkedIn? It's pretty easy. And, it's the thing is that there is so much free content on LinkedIn about how to do LinkedIn. Okay, so I follow a guy and I get my interns quite often to follow a guy called Adam Houlihan, who is an Aussie that does a lot of free workshops and provides lots of free tips. And he's actually got like a Facebook page that just puts tips and tricks on LinkedIn. And as things change on LinkedIn, he updates you and says, oh, they've changed this now, so you need to do this. So it's really important that, it's a great way to get started. And, you don't have a lot to provide in terms of stuff, but you can start to post and you can join in discussions and things like that. So you want a professional photo, okay? Not one that looks like you're, just left the beach or about to go to the beach or you're playing sport or something like that. Put a professional photo, the kind of photo that if you're a Malaysian, you might put on your resume. You want a little pitch. Who are you? You're studying, whatever you're studying and why you're studying it. What's your career aspirations? What do you think you're going to bring to an employer and why you're really keen to be in this industry? And then you have your profile, which is the stuff that is on your resume. Okay, so all the bits and pieces, and LinkedIn prompts you for all of this. It's all there. You don't have to make it up. It'll ask you for it. Where you went to school and where you went to university and those sorts of key things, and part-time jobs, all that sort of stuff can be in there. And it's sitting there, but it's more dynamic than your resume, because your resume just gets sent to certain people. This is sitting there live all the time. So it's a live resume, and you can update and change it all the time. And you can already start building your relationships. So our Aussie students that are doing our remote internships here in Malaysia at the moment, they should be putting those up there saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm interning in Malaysia remotely with this particular company. And, this is what I'm getting out of it. And when you're finished, you might put, 2 or 3 things that say, what were the key things you learned from that experience about working remotely, and how, working remotely is different to studying online. A lot of people think it's the same. In fact, people at universities often think it's the same, but it's different. There are different things you need to learn. So there's something you're pointing out to a company already that I've already done this. So when they're in this day and age where, we're preparing whole workforces for remote working, and we've all had to be doing it for the last 18 months, that, here's a student that's already done that. So you've been there and you've done that. So it's a good thing to put in there. You don't just put a line. Just don't say, the same as in the resume, just don't put studying this degree. Put a little bit about the degree, Are you happy with it? Is it exactly what you wanted? Or maybe it's not. Maybe you've really enjoyed the degree and you've got this, and this out of it, but you think you might want to move in a different direction. That's fine also. Be honest about the experience at university. Internships should be put there. They shouldn't just be intern at the global student from this state. What did you do? What did you learn? What did you get out of it? Put something there so that you're showing people what the benefits were of that internship. Okay. And the other thing that you can start to do then is building relationships, so you can connect with relevant people. So, connecting with people that are in that alumni from your particular university, because they might be influencers when you're looking for work. Industry people. So you might aspire to work for AirAsia. So you're not going to, you might not be able to connect with Tony Fernandez, but you could follow Tony Fernandez. You could follow AirAsia and comment and join in conversations and show that you're interested in that, in the airline industry, perhaps. You can join in when people are, often LinkedIn now has lots of, people having discussions about certain topics. Somebody posts something. Just because you're a student doesn't mean that you can't join in. Don't be frightened, okay? If you've just covered something in your degree, in one of your courses that ties in with one of the discussion topics, make a comment and say, yeah, look, I found this really interesting. We were discussing this in my course last week and we thought this and this. Because some of the things, the things that young grads, fresh grads, what companies are looking for is also people with fresh ideas and people with fresh interests. So it's not just, people are not always looking for people, as I said before, with high grades. They're looking for people that, can communicate their interests, that have got opinions. And I know that sometimes in certain cultures, giving your opinion is not always rewarded. Not always asked for, and often discouraged. But, LinkedIn provides a platform for you to do that, to test some of your opinions, to put your opinions out there, to, create discussions with people and show that's where your interests lie. Because when talent acquisition companies, if they want to, sometimes they use LinkedIn for sourcing people, the algorithm will throw up somebody like you if you've shown that you are interested in the industry. And, it sort of helps you work out who are the key players. Do I want to work for YTL or do I want to work for a much smaller startup? It allows you to sort of see the differences between, how bigger companies work or with smaller companies. And I think that, it sort of gives you an opportunity to understand the industry and what role you want to play in it. Okay. You've got a lot of big decisions while you're at uni and as you're sort of coming towards the end of your studies. And, internships often help you make those sort of decisions, when you go into an accounting internship and think, oh, my God, I don't think I could do this for the next 40 years. building up contacts and having those kinds of experiences allow you to sort of work out what it is that you really want to do. You know, it's a lot of decisions to be made. And so you need to create, you can create content of your own. If you've done something that's been, you know, you're quite proud of in, say you completed a project that you got a really high grade on, and it was a project that had an impact on a company or something, you know, an organisation or something like that, put it in there, you know, show that, you know, that's what you've done. It's not about just saying, here's who I am. It's not about self-promotion for the sake of self-promotion. It's about how you've gained experiences, how you've grown, how you've developed, what you're learning, and how you might be able to help a company or a team or another organisation meet their goals. Don't just, you know, comment on things and just for the sake of it. You know, be informed. If you're going to, you know, comment on something, you know, do the reading first. Don't just look at something and go, oh, that looks interesting, I'm going to like that. Read it so that you can actually comment and make a comment and build rapport with other people that are commenting on a particular thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, rather than just sort of, you know, making a comment for a comment's sake, you know. You never know who you will meet from doing this and who, you know, what sort of discussions you might get into. Follow key people and organisations that help you build your knowledge, so especially within your industry. So I think, you know, if you're interested in working in engineering and especially in rail, so there's a Women in Rail LinkedIn page. Follow professional organisations. So if you're interested in architecture, you know, you'll be following PAM, the Institute of Architects, and, you know, seeing what they're doing. Because often all these organisations have activities and events that are open to anybody, especially now because they're all online, and you can just join in. So you're going to meet people and learn things from those kinds of activities that are going to help you decide where you want to work, who you want to work with, and help you build your knowledge of the industry. Because when you go to an interview, the more that you can talk about the industry, showing that you really know a bit about the industry and you really want to be involved in that particular industry, you'll be able to learn all this from, you know, LinkedIn, probably other things as well, like, you know, joining. Many professional organisations have an associate membership or a youth membership, which doesn't give you voting rights, but allows you to go to meetings or to networking sessions and things like that, so that you can start to meet people as well. So it's all that sort of stuff is things that, you know, then you can, once you've done that, they go back into your resume, right? And they're on your LinkedIn, so that you're able to show people that you're really interested in this stuff. It's a resume no longer can it just be, this is what I'm studying, this is my grades, this is who I am. It's just not engaging enough. And it's a very, very competitive world out there. So the more that you can do to give yourself a three-dimensional profile rather than just, you know, a flat one-dimensional piece of paper that says, this is who I am, the more that, you know, the more opportunities you will have for getting interviews. That's the key, because you won't get every job, you know, but if you at least can get an interview, that's another whole thing about, you know, how do you, you know, preparing for an interview and how you're showcasing all the stuff that you've just said in your resume and on your LinkedIn that you do, you know. So that's another whole thing. The goal of the resume and the LinkedIn page is to actually, you know, get the interview. And be in that space where you can actually put your voice forward, okay? And I know that that's probably for many Malaysians that might be difficult, you know, that's not the way that you've been taught at school or perhaps even at university. So it's something that, you know, developing the self-confidence to do that sort of stuff, you know, is going to put you ahead of the pack, because it's what people are looking for. That's what companies are looking for, is people that can communicate and engage and sort of stand up and have a bit of self-confidence, okay? All right, I think that's the end. I think that was my last slide, is it?